There is an invisible timer running inside each of us. It does not mark seconds, it marks absences. The pandemic ended 2 years ago, but it feels like yesterday. Childhood was decades ago, but it still echoes as if it happened last week. This timer does not obey the laws of physics. It has its own cruel logic. The more important the moment, the faster it slips away. A 7-year-old child experiences a summer that seems to last forever. Every morning is a discovery. Every afternoon is a complete adventure. For her, December is years away from January. But a 35-year-old adult blinks, and the whole year dissolves. January merges with December into an indistinct mass of commitments, routines, and days that look like forgotten twins. It's not just perception. It's something deeper, more disturbing. It's as if time has been kidnapped from our consciousness and returned in smaller and smaller fragments, faster and faster, as if someone had adjusted the speed of our lives without warning us. This acceleration of time is not neutral. It carries with it a melancholy specific to modernity, the constant feeling that we are missing something essential, that life is slipping through our fingers as we desperately try to hold on to it. It is a silent anguish that accompanies us, the certainty that time has abandoned us. But perhaps the problem is not time. Perhaps it is the way we have been taught to inhabit it. Perhaps there is a temporal dimension that we have lost, a way of existing in the present that modernity has stolen from us without our noticing. And perhaps, just perhaps, it is still possible to regain it. Kronos devours his own children. In Greek mythology, this is the inevitable fate. Time consumes everything it creates. But modernity has done something even more violent with this metaphor. It has transformed Kronos from a devouring father into a relentless boss. Time is no longer the dimension where life happens. It has become the scarcest resource of all. Observe any given morning. The alarm clock cuts through sleep like a knife. It doesn't matter if your body still needed rest, if your dreams were still unfolding, if your mind was still navigating deeper waters. Time. The boss doesn't negotiate. It demands immediate, total presence. No questions asked. And so we begin each day. Not waking up to life, but being summoned to productivity. This summons spreads through every minute that follows. The shower has a predetermined duration. Breakfast is timed. Traffic is calculated with minimal margin for error. Each activity becomes a race against an invisible clock that never stops ticking inside our heads. Time has ceased to be the medium through which we experience existence and has become the despot that determines how it should be lived. Language betrays this temporal colonization. We say, "I don't have time," as if time were a personal property that we can possess or lose. We talk about investing time, saving time, gaining time. Vocabulary borrowed from the financial world that turns every moment into a commodity. Time has become capital, and we have become its eternal debtors. Time is money, we repeat like a mantra, without realizing that this equation has robbed us of something far more valuable than money. Observe how this works in practice. A deep conversation with a friend is interrupted because it's getting late. A sunset is admired for exactly 3 seconds before the mind jumps to the next obligation. A meal is wolfed down at industrial speed because there's no time to savor it. Every potentially transformative experience is cut short by the guillotine of efficiency. But there is something even more perverse about this dynamic. It convinces us that we are to blame for our sense of time scarcity. "You need to get organized," whispers the conditioned inner voice. "You need to be more efficient, more productive, faster." As if the problem were individual. As if each of us had personally failed to tame this temporal beast. The productivity industry has thrived on this guilt. Apps promise to give us back control. Time management methods guarantee maximum efficiency. Coaches sell formulas to optimize every second of our existence. Self-help books offer foolproof systems for mastering time. All of them start from the same poisonous assumption. Time is the enemy, and we must defeat it. It's a war that cannot be won, because we are fighting with the wrong weapons against the wrong opponent. The truth is more disturbing. We have all been educated in a lie about the nature of time. We grew up believing that there is only one way to experience it, the linear, mechanical, quantified way. Hours, minutes, seconds. Past, present, future organized into separate drawers, as if the experience of time were a bureaucratic file that needs to be kept in order. This temporal education has colonized our consciousness so completely that we have lost access to other temporal dimensions that we once inhabited naturally. The child we once were knew the time of play, dense, elastic, capable of transforming 15 minutes into an eternity of discoveries. We knew the time of waiting, that December that took an entire era to arrive because each day was lived in its specific fullness. They also knew the time of boredom, not the anxious boredom of adults who need to be constantly stimulated, but the fertile boredom that allowed the imagination to flourish. The time of contemplation when it was possible to spend hours watching ants work without it being considered a waste of time. the time of discovery, when each new experience created its own unique, incomparable duration. Now, as adults domesticated by mechanical temporal logic, we measure our lives in blocks of productivity. We plan the future as if it were a spreadsheet to be filled out. We remember the past as an edited timeline, where only the important milestones are worth remembering. And the present? The present has become just a place where we perform tasks that will take us to a future that, when it arrives, will already be past. This fragmentation of temporal experience is not accidental. It is the result of systematic conditioning that has taught us to exchange duration for speed, depth for efficiency, presence for anticipation. We learned that time is money before we even understood what it meant to have time to simply be. And the faster we go, the more time seems to slip through our fingers. The more we try to control it, the more it escapes us. Because we are trying to tame something that perhaps should never have been tamed. We are trying to possess something that perhaps can only be inhabited. But there is another way to experience temporality, a way that modernity has made us forget, but which still pulses somewhere in our deepest memory. Henri Bergson discovered something that the science of his time considered almost heretical. There are two completely different times inhabiting the same reality. One is clock time, uniform, measurable, relentlessly equal to itself. The other is the time of consciousness, fluid, subjective, capable of expanding and contracting like an emotional muscle that responds to the beating of inner life. When a mother waits for her child's medical test results, 15 minutes can become a torturous eternity. Each second stretches until it seems to contain entire years of anxiety. But when that same mother plays with her child on a Sunday afternoon, 3 hours pass in a heartbeat. The clock ticks at the same pace in both cases, but the experience of time is completely different. Bergson called this experience duration. Real, lived, human temporality. Duration is not a subjective whim. It is the most authentic way of inhabiting time, because it responds to the intensity of the experience, not its quantity. A deep conversation that lasts 20 minutes can leave more lasting marks on the memory than weeks of automated routine. A moment of epiphany can reconfigure an entire existence, while years of mechanical repetition can pass without leaving any significant traces on the consciousness. Think about the last time you completely lost track of time doing something you loved. Perhaps reading a book that touched your soul. Perhaps in a conversation that revealed unexpected layers of intimacy. Perhaps contemplating a landscape that seemed to contain all the beauty in the world. In those moments, the clock becomes irrelevant. Consciousness plunges into a different temporality, richer, denser with meaning. But we have been taught to distrust this authentic temporality. We have learned that it is imprecise, too subjective, unreliable for the demands of the real world. As if the real world were that of stopwatches and spreadsheets, not the one we actually live in. As if human experience were a defect to be corrected by mechanical objectivity. This distrust has devastating consequences. We have progressively lost the ability to recognize when we are experiencing authentic duration and when we are just counting time. We have stopped noticing the difference between a moment dense with meaning and an empty sequence of minutes. Life becomes a succession of equivalent temporal episodes, where everything has the same specific weight. A work meeting and a hug from your child occupy exactly the same space in your schedule. Corporate language has infected our relationship with duration. Quality time has become something that needs to be scheduled, as if temporal quality were a product that can be manufactured on demand. Special moments have become scheduled events, not experiences that emerge spontaneously from the depths of the present. Even leisure has been colonized by the logic of efficiency, making the most of free time, as if rest were a form of productivity. Notice how this manifests itself in memory. The most vivid memories rarely correspond to the longest events. They are fragments of intense duration. The smell of rain on a specific afternoon in childhood, the awkward silence before a first kiss, the exact moment when an uncomfortable truth is revealed. These moments crystallize in memory not because of their chronological length, but because of their existential density. Modernity has systematically robbed us of access to this duration. Smartphones interrupt any possibility of temporal deepening. Notifications fragment consciousness into smaller and smaller blocks. Attention, which should be the muscle through which we inhabit duration, becomes a scattered resource, unable to sustain any experience long enough for it to become meaningful. Multitasking has become a virtue, when in fact it is the mortal enemy of duration. Every time we divide our attention, we lose access to that dense temporality that allows an experience to transform us. We live on the surface of time, jumping from one activity to another without ever diving deeply into any of them. And then something paradoxical happens. The more we try to control time through productivity tools, the more we lose the ability to live it fully. The more we fragment our attention, the more time seems to speed up. It's as if we're trying to hold water with our hands open, The very effort of holding it ensures that it slips through our fingers. Bergson intuited that this loss of duration was not just an individual problem, but a civilizational pathology. A society that loses touch with its own authentic temporality also loses the ability to create, to love, to genuinely transform itself. Because all these experiences require duration, qualitative, not quantitative time. Perhaps this is why adult life seems to accelerate inexorably. It is not that chronological time changes speed. It is that we progressively lose access to that dense, rich, meaningful temporality that made each experience unique. Days become interchangeable because we have lost the art of inhabiting them in their temporal singularity. But this art can be recovered. Duration is not a privilege of childhood or a rarity reserved for a few special moments. It is the natural way for consciousness to inhabit time, a capacity that has been obscured but not destroyed. It still pulses beneath the surface of automated experience, waiting to be recognized. The present is the most dangerous place for the modern mind. There, far from the safe anchors of the known past and the controllable future, consciousness is exposed to the naked reality of existence. That is why we have developed a sophisticated escape technology, living perpetually outside the now. The contemporary mind has become a time travel machine, compulsively jumping between yesterday and tomorrow. While brushing your teeth, you are already planning breakfast. While drinking coffee, you are already anticipating traffic. In traffic, you are already rehearsing your first meeting. In the meeting, you are already thinking about lunch. And so on, in a systematic escape from the only moment that actually exists. This escape is not neutral. It carries with it a specific anguish, the constant feeling of always arriving, never being. Like an eternal traveler who spends his life in airports between departures and arrivals without ever actually inhabiting a place. Life becomes a constant when I get there, after this is over, before that happens, always in transit to a temporality that is not this one. The past offers a particular form of temporal exile, chronic nostalgia. There the mind finds a safe haven where everything has already been resolved, where mistakes are already known, and where pain has already been processed. The past is comfortable because it is immutable. It requires no decisions, presents no surprises, demands no courage. It is a dead temporality, but a reassuring one. Social media feeds this manufactured nostalgia. Memories automatically appear on our timelines, as if happiness was something that can only be recognized in retrospect. Vintage filters transform the present into an instant past, in a desperate attempt to give temporal density to experiences lived on the surface. We increasingly live in a personal museum of moments that have been documented but never truly inhabited. The future offers another kind of refuge, productive anxiety. By constantly projecting itself forward, the mind creates the illusion of control. Planning becomes an addiction. Anticipation becomes identity. I'm preparing for, I'm building for, I'm investing for. Phrases that transform the present into a mere instrument of what does not yet exist. The culture of personal optimization is the clearest symptom of this escape into the future. Each present moment becomes an investment in an improved version of oneself that will exist tomorrow. Meditation to be more productive, exercise to have more energy, reading to develop skills. Even self-care becomes a strategy for future performance. The present loses its intrinsic value and becomes merely a means to ends that are always beyond it. But there is something more subtle in this dynamic. Both the escape to the past and the escape to the future are ways of avoiding the radical vulnerability of the present. Here, at this exact moment, life happens without a script. Here, reality presents itself in its rawest form, without the comforting mediations of memory or projection. Here, we are called upon to exist without guarantees. This vulnerability of the present explains why we have developed so many strategies to avoid it. Smartphones are perfect machines for temporal dispersion. Each notification is an invitation to leave the now. Each scroll is an escape from the density of the present moment. Social media allows us to inhabit a phantasmal temporality, where we live simultaneously in the documented past and the performative future, but never in the authentic present. Phantom vibration syndrome, when we feel our cell phone vibrate even when it is silent, is the perfect symptom of this chronic temporal dispersion. The body is trained to escape the present even before there is a real reason to do so. The mind anticipates distraction, desires interruption, actively seeks ways to not be where it is. The irony is devastating. The more we try to capture the present through photos, stories, and posts, the further we move away from it. The experience becomes a pretext for recording. The moment becomes material for a future narrative. We live more and more to tell that we live, in an existential meta-language that progressively distances us from the raw experience of being alive. This temporal dispersion has profound consequences for the quality of existence. Relationships become superficial because we lose the ability to be fully present with others. Conversations take place on multiple simultaneous temporal layers. We speak in the present, think about the future, consult the digital past, all at the same time. The other becomes a backdrop for the mental narrative that never stops. Work becomes automated because we perform tasks without inhabiting the time in which they occur. Even pleasure becomes mechanical because we consume experiences without digesting them temporally. Sex happens while the mind is already planning what comes next. Food is swallowed while the eyes are already looking for the next distraction. Reclaiming the present is not a matter of technique or discipline. It is a matter of existential courage. Courage to inhabit the radical uncertainty of each moment. Courage to abandon the temporal crutches that give us the illusion of security. Courage to accept that life always happens now, never yesterday or tomorrow. Time does not need to be regained because it was never lost. This is the hardest truth to accept. What we call time acceleration is, in reality, a specific way of inhabiting consciousness. Time has not changed. We have changed the way we are in it. A 5-year-old child does not have more time than a 40-year-old adult. Both have exactly 24 hours a day, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. The difference is not in the amount of time available, but in the quality of presence that each offers to the moments they live. Children inhabit each moment with their full attention. When they play, only play exists. When they observe an ant, the whole world is reduced to that small universe in motion. There is no temporal division in their consciousness. Past and future are abstractions that have not yet colonized their experience. They live in a constant eternity called now. Adults, on the other hand, distribute their presence among multiple simultaneous temporalities. While living in the present, part of the mind is processing the past and another part is anticipating the future. Attention is fragmented into dozens of cognitive microtasks. The result is a rarefied temporal experience, where each moment is only partially lived. But this fragmentation is not irreversible. Bergson intuited that authentic duration remains accessible, only obscured by layers of conditioning. Like a musician who has lost his hearing to certain frequencies due to excessive noise, but who can regain it through conscious practice and deliberate silence. The reconquest of time does not require sophisticated techniques or complex philosophies. It requires something much simpler and infinitely more difficult: the courage to be completely where you are. No escape to the future, no refuge in the past, no distraction to other dimensions of experience. Just total presence in what is. This means inhabiting the radical vulnerability of each moment. Accepting that the now offers no guarantees, promises no security, provides no maps for navigating the unknown. It means renouncing the temporal control that modernity has taught us to desire and embracing the creative uncertainty that pulses at the heart of every moment. When this happens, something extraordinary is revealed. Time becomes an ally instead of an adversary. Each moment gains its own density, specific weight, unique flavor. Life ceases to be a race against the clock and becomes a dance with temporality. The fear that time will pass too quickly dissolves, because each moment is lived in its unrepeatable fullness. The transformation is not dramatic. There is no cinematic moment of revelation where everything suddenly becomes clear. It is a subtle, almost imperceptible process, like a gradual change in the light throughout the day. Little by little, the feeling of temporal scarcity gives way to a silent abundance. Not because there is more time available, but because each moment available is inhabited with greater depth. A conversation is no longer interrupted by anxiety about the next appointment. A meal is no longer swallowed mechanically while the mind is already elsewhere. A sunset is no longer compulsively photographed and is once again contemplated with the reverence it deserves. Life regains its natural temporal texture. The final paradox is revealed. The more deeply we inhabit the present, the more time we seem to have. Not because the days are chronologically longer, but because each day is lived to its fullest. An hour of authentic presence can contain more life than weeks of temporal automatism. Eternity is not in the distant future or the idealized past. It pulses silently at the core of each present moment, waiting to be recognized. Each instant contains all the possibilities for transformation, all the potential for beauty, all the depth that an existence can bear. Bergson was right. Time is continuous creation, perpetual novelty, incessant transformation. But this creation does not happen in an abstract dimension separate from human experience. It happens here now through the way we choose to inhabit each moment that is offered to us. The temporal acceleration of modernity is not an inevitable destiny. It is a symptom of a specific form of consciousness, a form that can be questioned, deconstructed, transformed. Time has not abandoned us. We have absent ourselves from it. And this absence can be reversed through a radical act of presence. The white rabbit Alice followed did not take her to another world. It took her to the same reality, but seen through eyes that had learned to see differently. The hole in the ground was not a portal to another dimension. It was an invitation to inhabit this dimension more deeply. The time we seek is nowhere other than this exact moment. It never was. How do you inhabit the time you have? Write in the comments. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life. The codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.